I'm making $300,000 a year. I feel stuck.
Your expenses continue to grow with you. As you are making more money, your lifestyle changes. You have not been able to build your wealth.
There is a name for him in the financial expert side, a Henry, high earner, not rich yet.
If you're only going to save 10% of your net income, it'll take you 187 years to get there. The savings have to be significantly higher.
Is it fair to say the lever on wealth building is your lifestyle?
You're spot on.
Being rich is high cash flow and visible consumption. Being wealthy, defined by owning enough assets to sustain your lifestyle without needing a paycheck. People make great money, right? But they still feel stuck. This is the Cash Poor Asset Rich podcast. I'm Mickael.
I'm Amer.
We break down real estate in a way that's simple to understand,
Easy to relate to,
and practical enough to act on.
Let's get started.
Amer, have you heard of a Henry? Do you know what a Henry is?
Maybe like a Karen, but a male version of a Karen?
No, actually, I just learned this today. So I was doing some research before our episode, before we hopped on, and I learned that a Henry is the working rich. So Henry in the financial expert world stands for high earner, not rich yet.
So it's
How
an
crazy is that?
abbreviation.
It's an abbreviation. So they call, in the financial world, in the financial expert, they're often used as an acronym, Henry. And that's what I learned. I was just fascinating. It was, to me, it was just amazing.
So a good example of a Henry maybe is a C-level guy working in corporate America who's a high earner, but hasn't really started his investment journey.
Exactly. Yes. So somebody that literally is which I think we've both been there in that, on that side. But I even looked for, but I think that it was just a crazy, that there is a name for him in the financial expert side, the working rich, right?
Mickael,
actually,
the last time I earned a W-2, I was 20 years old, and I was not a Henry.
Wow.
I'll tell you that. I was making $30,000 a year plus commission, plus 6% commission. I was working in retail. So that's the last W-2 job that I had. So I've never made it to the Henry status.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that's great to hear. So what was I going to say? What I was going to tell you is, when I was doing the research, I even had a thought of completely changing our podcast name, to the Working Rich Henry, Henry, the Working Rich podcast. That's literally, I was like, let me run it by Amer and see what he thinks. Anyways, I just wanted to kind of mention that because it was really crazy. Another thing which we can talk about a little bit later is the definition between being rich and being wealthy, what separates the two. But before we even get into that, I just want to start off with pretty much saying why do people, I guess it's a question for both you and I. People make great money, right? There's a lot of people that make really good, let's call it living, or earning, high earners, which we just talked about, the Henrys. But they still feel stuck, meaning they feel no matter how much money they're earning, whether at the end of the year they have to pay taxes or whatever the case may be in terms of I don't know, find their lifestyle creeps up or any other reason. Why is it that they feel stuck?
So I wanna comment on something that you've already said. Their lifestyle creeps up. Everybody's lifestyle creeps up. I was at one point when I was living in my parents' house and living in a basement and trying to figure out what I want to do in life. My car payment was $99 a month. My phone payment was $40 a month. I would eat for a couple $100 a month, and I really didn't have any real bills beyond that. beside my gas, my food, and my basic bills. And as a result, I was living off of $1,000 a month, and it was enough. It was enough to support my basic needs. Fast forward 15, 20, 25 years later, there has been an escalating momentum in living expenses and in responsibilities that you take on, whether it is putting money away for a college fund, whether it is buying a life insurance policy for yourself, for your wife, for your kids. I have life insurance policies that I've bought for my kids, and it's growing as they grow. So once they're 18 years old or they're 21, whatever the case may be, they could decide if they want to continue contributing to it or cash it out to pay off their student loans in the event that they do have any student loans, or use it as a down payment for their wedding expense, whatever the case may be. But the point is, your expenses continue to grow with you. So as you are making more money, as you are earning slowly the Henry status, there's a counter effect that's happening on the other side, which is your living expenses continue to grow and continue to increase. Your lifestyle changes, the cars you drive, the house that you live in, the vacations that you take. Now you're no longer flying economy. You might be flying Comfort Plus or flying business class. You're no longer renting on vacation a $50 a day car. You're probably renting a $150 a day car. So and there's nothing wrong with that, but because you're able to do it, and you know
Yeah.
that you have the cash flow from your high earning job to do it, you continue to do it, but you're still in the same spot. You have not been able to make any significant savings. You have not been able to build your wealth beyond where you were 3 or 5 years from now. And
Yeah.
this is really touching base on, the fundamental question that you asked earlier, is why do people feel stuck? And this is the exact reason why people feel stuck.
So, and that's great. So, kind of to simplify this, is it fair to say, like, obviously, as you mentioned, lifestyle as it creeps up? I mean, we can talk about lifestyle, we can talk about not having maybe enough knowledge about knowing not to pay, maybe not 100% not paying taxes, but even some, like, saving some of the taxes instead of paying it, utilizing the tax codes and et cetera. But to simplify this, maybe even, concentrating on the lifestyle side and it creeping up. My thing is, like, let's say, okay, so let's say I'm listening to you right now, and I am making, call it, $300,000 a year. And I didn't start off there, but as as life continues, and as I build my skill level, I'm making now $300,000 a year. And my lifestyle, as you mentioned, creeps up, right? It changes as the more money you make. When is the pivotal moment where okay, I'm making $300,000 a year, but I feel stuck. I don't feel like I'm saving enough, or my money is going to taxes, or whatever the case may be in this scenario. When do I start prioritizing? When do I know, okay, like you mentioned, obviously you have kids, you have um the expenses on the kids side, you have life insurance, you have all of the travel. Eh, how can you prioritize to be able to start building, and not feeling stuck, kind of feeling unstuck when you're making that $300,000 a year? Can that change happen no matter what you're making?
Let's break it down, right? $300,000 a year.
Yes.
The first tranche, which is a third of that money, is going to Uncle Sam. So you're down to
Okay.
200,000 of net cash flow by default.
We're talking if we're on a W-2 making
Yep.
300,000, correct?
Absolutely. You're on a W-2.
Yes.
You're a Henry. You're a high earner that's earning a
Yes.
W-2 wage. You're going to lose a third of your income to Uncle Sam. So here's
Fair. Okay.
$100,000 already out the window. You're down to 20,000 or 200,000.
Yes.
200,000. You take that, you divide it in layman terms by 12 to know what your actual net income is. And,
Okay.
what is that? $15,000 a month?
Yeah, call it we can call it 15,000 for math's sake. Sure.
Okay. So, depending who you ask with that 15,000, some people tell you you should spend two-thirds of it and you should invest the other third. So, if you fall into that bucket, you've got $5,000 a month of potential money that you can deploy into investments, into passive investments. It's about 60 grand a year. Now
60
there
grand a
there
year.
now
Okay.
there are others that will tell you something different. It will tell you, I want to be able to save 50% of my net income and
Sure.
deploy it into investments. It's going to require a sacrifice. It's going to require buying less and having less of a taste to luxury in order for you to do that.
Mm.
But in my opinion, it's a very good sacrifice. And that will free up somewhere around $90,000 a year in potential income that you can deploy into investments. And 90,000 a year, I mean, if you set aside $90,000 a year every year to deploy into an investment, that's a pretty significant amount. It is
It is.
many syndications have minimums, and these minimums can be 25, 50,000, 75,000, maybe 100,000. But if you're setting aside $90,000 a year, you can ultimately buy into one deal per year. Fast forward 10 years from now you have 10 deals of passive investment that you can potentially buy real estate with.
Yeah, and obviously we'll get into as we do these episodes to kind of dissect a lot of this. And I think this is a very good starting point in terms of utilizing and using the $300,000 example and kind of what we broke down. And we'll use that as example and maybe others as we continue. But that's great. At least for me now, I'm sitting down, I'm listening. I make $300,000. The potential that I can save, obviously, depending on my lifestyle and all of that stuff, sounds like I can potentially, we'll call it, without even getting into how much I can save in the tax side. But as I am today, I'm earning $300,000 a year as a W-2, whether it's an employee or in this case, C-level employee. Um, I could invest 60 to potentially $90,000 a year. And I think this is the mindset of going from, we called it stuck, to starting to kind of have that almost an aha moment, a pivotal moment in your life where you're like, okay, I'm going from being titled as the Henry, the working rich, into now I'm starting to build, which is a perfect segue into what we're going to discuss next. And that is that, like I had mentioned earlier, what is the difference between rich and wealthy? To you, obviously, I did some research on my side, and I figured that's what it meant. But to you, Amer, what does that mean? What is the difference between rich? Let's equate that definition. And what is wealthy? What does that equate to? What does that mean to you?
It's such a relative question. You can ask 10 different people depending
Very
on
true.
where they're at in their life, and they're going to give you a different answer. There's no right or wrong to this answer, but I'll give you my perspective. My
Please.
perspective about rich and healthy and wealthy. Somebody who's making, back to our original example, somebody who's making $300,000 a year, in the eyes of
Yes.
society, this is a very rich individual. And if we look at statistics, at least here in America, they probably fall within that 1 to 5% of the overall population.
Very true.
However, we're also programmed to believe that our mortgage payment should not exceed a third of our net income. We're also led to believe that we should only be saving about 10% of our net income. I take all of that and I throw it outside of the window. Because if you're only going to save 10% of your net income, wealth is going to become a mission impossible for you. It's not going to happen because you just don't have enough firepower with 10%. What is 10% of $200,000 net income for that individual that makes $300,000 a year? It's $20,000 a year. Doesn't move the needle in today's investment world unless you go and buy yourself some securities
Well,
and some stock.
is it
But
fair to say like it doesn't move the needle, but it's better than nothing, right? It
it's
was
better
better
than
than not
nothing.
doing nothing.
Better
Perfect.
than
Yeah,
not.
absolutely.
Better
But I
and
get what you're
better
saying. Like it's not enough
to
to build.
it's not enough to build wealth.
Yeah, yeah.
So the
Okay,
very
sorry to
first
cut you
thing
off.
that I say is fundamentally what we've been taught over the years is wrong. Okay? Because a mortgage, I don't want to dive, this is a big rabbit hole that I'm going to dive into, you know. What is a mortgage? Are you really building wealth with a mortgage? I personally think that your primary residence is not a cash generating asset. It may build it may build
But isn't that the
uh
American dream, Amer?
it is. It is. And I'm here talking that the American dream that we're led to believe to buy real estate with a mortgage and pay it off in 30 years is something that we're being sold on. It is something that gives you pride of ownership, but is it really a wealth generating tool? It is not. Your home will increase in value over the years because of inflation. Very, very normal. You're going to generate value just from the value increase over the years. But is it a real cash flowing generating asset? It is not. Exact opposite. It's actually bearing you with additional expenses, whether it's your mortgage payment, whether it is maintenance, whether it is property taxes, etc. So somebody who wants to really build wealth needs to start by evaluating their fixed expenses for their families. You know, maybe having a
Yeah.
$10,000 mortgage payment is not something that they should wish for right now. If you're trying to generate wealth, save that mortgage payment, downsize the lifestyle. Look at freeing up more investment dollars to be able to buy cash flowing generating assets that not only will grow in value, but also you have a tenant that is ultimately paying your mortgage instead of you paying it yourself like your primary residence. It's increasing in value, it's providing you net cash flow, and your tenants are covering the costs of ownership, whether it's the mortgage, whether it's the property taxes or the maintenance. That would be my fundamental focus if I'm trying to generate wealth, is how do I live a very conservative lifestyle until I get over the hump? Once I get over the hump, I start developing a taste for luxury. But developing a taste for luxury and developing a taste for larger homes and nicer cars can be extremely tampering and extremely bottlenecking your wealth generating process.
And that's great. And you know how we always obviously for those who know us, we're health fanatics, right? And Amr more me. But we always and you've even said this, the two levers when it comes to measuring macros are protein and carbs, right? Those are the two levers that you go up and down on in terms of, you know, to change things and be able to, you don't touch the fat lever, you change the
Wh-
either the protein or the carbs.
The fat or the carbs. We keep the protein consistent.
Okay, so fat and the carbs. So the reason I'm saying this is because, is it fair to say the lever on wealth building is your lifestyle?
You're spot on, Michael. You're spot on.
Um,
Because capital is finite. The capital that we have access to through our W-2 or through any means of income is finite. And we have to work with that particular lever. That is a lever that we can move. Decreased lifestyle equals to increased availability for investment capital. You increase your lifestyle, investment capital decreases. So it's a fine balance to continue balancing the two together, and it's tough. It's hard. It's hard. We live in a consumer-based society. We have ads in our faces every day, enticing us to buy goods, enticing us to buy tangible and intangible products. So it's very, very difficult to have that self-control to be able to do it. But it's got to be done. It's got to be done.
yeah, and
Warren
finite.
Buffett did it.
Just
Elon Musk did it.
yeah,
All the giants
absolutely.
did it. They do it. Some of them do it
Yeah,
to this day. Some of them drive some pretty old cars because they just feel that the depreciating factor of a brand new vehicle is not something they can swallow and tolerate.
yeah. I think you hit it right on the nail in terms of the playing the doing when you the rich on the side of the rich is playing the finite game. And for those who don't understand the finite versus the infinite side, is so finite refers to something with like a countable limited number of things, or definite end, right? Example, you stop working, you stop earning, right? And wealth is the infinite game, right? Is something that, okay, if everything comes to an end at the end of the day, but if we're looking at this from a business perspective, if you're playing the wealth game, it's an infinite, because if you stop working, you're going to continue earning. Is that fair to say?
It is.
And when I was looking it up, just so and it was the definition that I understood it as well, is literally, it says being rich. I'm going to read it literally word for word. It says being rich is characterized by high cash flow and visible consumption, luxury cars, designer clothes. It can be temporary. If the high income stops, the rich lifestyle often disappears. Now, being wealthy, defined by owning enough assets to sustain your lifestyle indefinitely without needing a paycheck. A wealthy person may not look rich, but has total financial independence. Is that like perfect or what?
It is. It is as it really touches base on what we just talked about. It's a reflection
Yes,
of what we just talked about.
100%.
And let's break that down. What does that all means? How do you build enough wealth in order for you to sustain your lifestyle without pulling a paycheck? I like
Yeah,
to quantify things so our listeners can really understand what it's going to take. Today, most conservative real estate investments generate anywhere between an 8 to a 10% return.
okay.
So
And
back
and
to
just so
our
we understand, a return means, so if I for our listeners to understand, a return means if I put in $100,000, an 8 to 10% would give me how much?
$8 to $10,000 a year.
Perfect. Okay, so 100,000 I invested, like kind of almost similar to what we talked about earlier, the 90,000. Let's call it 100,000 for easy math. 8 to 10% would be $8,000 to $10,000 in almost passively coming back to me every single year by putting in that $100,000. All right, sorry.
That's exactly right, Mickael. So back to our original conversation is our C-level employee, high earner, Henry, making $300,000 a year. How much in net assets? And what I mean by net assets, not portfolio value. I mean net assets after any mortgages they would have on that property or that portfolio. How much in net assets does our friend Henry need to have in order for him to be able to retire from his W-2 paycheck job? At an 8% return, he needs to earn or he needs to own $3.7 million of real estate assets, generating 8% return. That will get him his $300,000 a year. Now, if he's generating a 10% return, he or she would need a $3 million net portfolio. How do we get there? What is that path to get there? Okay?
Okay.
It
Sure.
goes back to our dialogue is how much are you willing to put away in savings every year to get to that net portfolio size? If the answer is 10% of your net income, which we've talked about
Yeah.
it, is $20,000 a year, it'll take you 187 years to get there. It's
How long?
187 years.
Well, that's crazy. All right.
Okay. So somebody that's putting away, what I'm trying to say is
Maybe the
somebody.
only people that could be able to do that is the people in the Bible, right? Because they say that they lived for 700 years or something like
That's
that,
right.
I
That's right.
think.
That's right. That's right. And we're not talking about opportunity cost. We're not talking about what is how much is our dollar worth today versus tomorrow. We're just plain numbers. So
Wow.
so somebody who's putting away $20,000 a year, and we're not talking about compound returns either. I'm just making it very, very simple, very fundamental,
Sure.
because
Yeah.
the 20,000 it's going to compound, right? Your 20,000
Sure.
today, with an 8% return is no longer, your principal is no longer 20,000. It's a little bit more than that, but I'm setting that aside. I'm just making it fundamentally very, very simple. Somebody who's saving $20,000 a year is not going to get to that wealth definition that we're talking about, is being able to supplement your income and maintain your lifestyle without pulling a check. So the savings have to be significantly higher than 10% of your net income to get you there. And this
Yeah.
is where sacrifices have to be made. This is where
Very, very
10% is
nice.
no longer, shouldn't be the goal.
Yeah,
Should be.
absolutely. It's not about getting the math correct, or whether it's 187 years or 100 years. Either way, you're it's not it's not enough to move the needle, like you said earlier, right? And that is the difference. For me, kind of going back on, when I had my aha moment, like growing up, like, I wasn't a reader. I hated reading. I didn't enjoy school. Um, when I got married, my wife is a big book reader. And she used to always tell me, read books. And I'm like, yeah, it's not me. Like, I didn't care to read or anything. Unfortunately, the first time I picked up a book to read, whether it's Audible or book, I know some people might find a controversy when somebody says, I read a book, but you listen to the Audible. Regardless, you got some of the knowledge extracted. It didn't happen until I'm 42 today. And it didn't happen until I was 38 years old. And It was the book that we read, Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I'm sure so many people in the real estate game can probably relate as probably the first book they read. But it was, she read it. We were kind of like she explained things to me, and ever since then, I picked up book after book to listen to because it gave me a lot of knowledge. And that's where my aha moment happened. And as they say, yes, you can grab a lot of knowledge, but it's only when that knowledge is applied, it's when it gets dangerous, because that's where the power is, in terms of how we're all taught knowledge is power. Yes, great, okay. Who cares if you hold all the information? It's what you do with it, right? Um, so that was the pivotal moment. And that's when I started getting into real estate and investing, because then I said, any money, hence the name of the podcast, Cash Poor, Asset Rich. That doesn't mean you're poor on the streets. That means you are strategically understanding what is important and prioritizing. Okay, it's lifestyle, yes, but you're prioritizing your cash, your hard earned money, and investing it into some assets that will generate you wealth, playing the infinite game. And beside all that, it was, when I started earning money, I remember I was sitting down with my CPA, and and it was the first time, my first year earning a higher income. I think I made, I don't know, it was like $150,000, $130,000 that year. Again, don't quote me, I don't remember exactly. And I owed taxes. And I'm like, what is that? Like, what? Like, why do I have to pay taxes? And he said, it's just the way it works. And I said, there has to be a different way. And he literally said, the only way is to earn less, stop earning money. And it was horrible advice, because that's not true, right? It's not. You don't have to earn less in order for you to build to pay less taxes. So anyways, year after year, I paid more taxes, because that mentality was like, okay, I either start earning less, so I pay less in taxes, or I just start earning and knowing that there are taxes to pay at the end of the year, which absolutely sucked, because it was I just hated it, and everybody probably on this, if somebody's listening and understanding where that pain is coming from, when that end of the year or whatever, you're sitting down with your CPA. I always used to make a joke. It's like, the worst time was when I used to go meet my CPA to pay to finalize my taxes, because it was always going to be a nice bill. But it wasn't until a year or two ago when I understood that I can save so much in taxes in real estate. And that was another aha moment. And aha moments really shape our future. And it depends on if we take action, as going back to applying that knowledge. But it was those two aha moments that really got me, you know, becoming wiser and a better investor. Um, and that really, like, I was like, wow, this is now the whole mindset shift, going from let's earn money to like let's build wealth shift happened. Because my whole I always thought like I was just working, or either whether, and on top of it, I owned businesses. It wasn't just me working for a W-2. I but I always thought it was just, okay, yeah, real estate is cool and all of that, but you always hear like real estate is for for very long play. And yes, it could be, but it doesn't mean that you just have your lifestyle take over your everything else that you're doing, and then you have no investments to put in. Um, all right, so we talked about the difference between wealth and richness and all of that stuff, and we talked about the Henrys, um, and we talked about a lot of the stuff. Do you have any other things to add on, or anything that you have, um, like, most people are selling their time, right? It's their time to earn a paycheck, and it's risky long term. But when they stop working, the money stops, right? And wealth, why is it that when you build wealth, does it not stop?
I can touch base on that. Generally speaking, when you are building wealth or on the pursuit of building wealth, you have investments outside of your W-2 paycheck that's generating you some sort of a passive income. It is coming. Let's call it, you want to call it mailbox money. You can call it
Sure.
mailbox money. You want to call it securities dividends from a stock portfolio, life insurance benefit dividends from a life insurance policy. These vehicles, annuities, these vehicles are building you wealth without you being directly involved. A life insurance policy is building wealth. It's building value, especially if it's a whole life policy. It's building value and it's building dividends. And you have an expert that you talk to, your financial advisor, and he is steering that particular vehicle. But that's not the only vehicle that you have. You also have some money sitting in a Fidelity investment account or in a Charles Schwab, you name it. That's invested in securities. It's invested into the stock market, and most likely you're either trading it yourself, which is no longer a passive vehicle, but if you have a third party that's managing that money for you, managing those trades for you, managing your positions for you, that you're trusting that person to build you wealth. Real estate is no different. Real estate requires a sponsor who is going to be your confidant, your trusted advisor, to build you a passive income vehicle that will provide you depreciation from day one you buy real estate, that provides you passive income from the rent that your tenants are paying. And also, it is paying down your debt over time. So there are three different vehicles that real estate generates wealth. The write off that you're going to get from buying the real estate, the rent roll that you're going to receive from your tenants paying the rents, and then a portion of that is also going and paying your debt down, generating additional wealth building tool within the same investment. Not to forget, the fourth vehicle, which is my favorite vehicle, is the increase in value over time. And that's just an inevitable. So what investments out there provide four different streams of income? I don't know of many, but I know of real estate and I've done it. I've been doing it for 13 years. The four streams of income that real estate has provided me in the past. And we're going to share some of those skills and let's call them trade secrets with all of our listeners to really understand the power and the leverage that real estate can provide an investor. So when you have one, two, three, four, five different assets, and each asset is generating you four different streams of income. Some of them are realized today, such as the rent that your tenants are paying, versus others are realized tomorrow. You don't realize the pay down until you sell the property. You don't realize the appreciation until you sell the property. And another income that you also realize on day one is when you purchase the real estate and you're getting that depreciation, you're getting that write off on tax return.
Yeah.
And compound all of those benefits together, multiply it by multiple assets that you would eventually own year over year in your portfolio. This is really the power of generating wealth and having multiple avenues of income to get you to the finish line.
And over this, that's great. This is awesome. I mean, we can call them the Fantastic Four, right?
Sure.
Of real estate. And that's when I was reading the books, a lot of it touched base, especially in Robert Kiyosaki's and of the world and all of those type of books. But it talked about those four things, and that is amazing. Now, obviously, just like I feel like real estate and stocks always kind of compete on, and now crypto is also on that horizon. It's like, which one is better, which one is worse? And I don't think it's about better or worse. In my opinion, I think it's about just being that intelligent investor. What makes most sense to you, and what is your risk level? But real estate, I mean, we've seen the crash of 2008. And if somebody started off in 2003 and then went through that 2008 crash, it would be devastating. It would be all of the Fab Four, or the Fantastic Four that you just talked about, are, I don't want to say down the drain, but the majority of it are almost vanished there in a split of a second. Um, how how do you uh, how do you go through that? Like, let's say there's a crash. I invested 100,000, like we talked about, and my return is 8 to 10%, and then a crash happens. What am I losing out of those Fantastic Four?
If you're not selling, and if you're
Yeah,
not forced to sell, you're losing nothing.
you just got to
If you're
ride the wave.
just got to ride the wave, and how could you ride the wave? Is you got to be in an investment that's conservative, that's not highly leveraged. So in the event that real estate income drops because you're losing tenants in a shopping center or you're losing tenants in an
Mhm.
office building, your mortgage is not at jeopardy because you don't have enough income coming from. So what do? Maybe you focus on investments that have less leverage. And what is leverage? Leverage is buying a real estate asset with debt. Going to the bank and say, "Bank, I am buying $1 million asset. I'm putting 25% down and I want to borrow 75% from you." The 75% that you're borrowing, that 750,000 that you're buying, is leverage. So if you keep your leverage more conservative, maybe a 65% leverage or a 50% leverage, then you're more conservative. The impact of cash flow from tenants paying rent is less to affect you because you don't have that much debt out there. So that is how you shield yourself from recessions in real estate. Now, building value, that's going to slow down during a recession. You're not going to build value because there's just not that many trades happening in the market.
Sure.
Depreciation, you'll still
Be able to.
earn your depreciation because depreciation is strictly based on your purchase price. No one's going to take that depreciation back from you because the market has shifted. And then your monthly cash flow that you're receiving from your tenants, it's going to have a small decrease if tenants stop paying or tenant vacate. But then on the other side, if leverage is low, you can ride that wave. Personally, during the 2008 crash, I've lost everything I had back then in the stock market.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
the stocks were devaluing at such a high light speed, and I was trading margin at that time. Trading margin meaning borrowing money from my broker, so I can increase my buying power to buy more stock for the same amount of money without bringing in additional cash. And if you're familiar or know anything about options, as the stock market devalues and you're trading at options, a capital call will be required by your broker. You got to come up with more money to be able to sustain that option that you're
Wow.
trading, because you're trading with money that you don't really have. And value is not maintained, it's falling below that threshold. And I didn't have the cash calls to make those cash calls. So I've lost a significant amount of money, more than what I could afford in the stock market. So back to your question, Michael, how do you shield yourself in the event of a recession? The golden standard to real estate is low leverage.
Okay. That's amazing. Great advice. I mean, Warren Buffett says it in terms of be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. Can that be applied to real estate?
No doubt. No doubt. I am the perfect example of that right now. I'm looking at development opportunities in the United Arab Emirates because I believe that any vacant land that could be developed is heavily discounted because of the geopolitical situation over in the Middle East. So I'm keeping my eye on what's happening over there because people are going to be fearful. Volume of transactions is going to decline, and there's opportunity.
If you got value from this, do something with it.
Subscribe
Ask better questions.
and stay consistent.
Because building assets isn't about one big decision.
It's about disciplined and calculated ones over time.
If you know someone who earns well but isn't building assets the right way,
Share this with them.
this is the Cash Poor Asset Rich podcast. I'm Mickael.
This is Amer. See you next time.